All right, so we're very pumped up, obviously. Basketball season is upon us. The NBA is finally back. The Heat open up their season tomorrow at home. Detroit Pistons. All guests on ZASLOW Show 2.0 brought to us by the official beer of the program, Johnny Cuba. European roots with that Caribbean soul. A refreshing German lager in a can. How are you going to enjoy your NBA action tonight? You got the whole ring ceremony, the banner, that whole deal. Nuggets, Lakers. You're sitting on your couch like I am in the Zaslow Mansion family room. You got a Johnny Cuba in your hand. Pick up a six-pack of Johnny Cuba, your local Sedanos, Presidente, Winn-Dixie, Fresco y Mas. Don't forget, always drink responsibly. And, of course, Johnny Cuba's mantra, stay tranquilo. And joining us here is our pal, radio voice of your Miami Heat. Everybody's favorite little basketball team is Jason Jackson. Jason, good to see you. And this is year number what overall for you? Can I take a guess? Real quick?
Just
okay.
for the Heat is what you're
Yeah, for the Heat.
Yeah,
all right, I'm going to take a guess. It is year number this will be year number 19 for you.
You only missed it by one. It's year 20.
Wow, that's a special year. Nice round number, year 20. How about that?
No, it's magical, man. I was talking to some youngsters, and that's what happens now. You roll in the street and you hit somebody that's 25.
Mm-hmm.
And their entire cognitive life of being a Heat fan, I get to be connected to. And Eric Reed has that. Hell, John Crotty has that. John's only 1 year behind me in the sense of being in the mix. Jose Pineda, it's pretty astonishing. You know, I came in when everything changed, when Dwayne was in his second year, trade for Shaquille, and there was this decision. We should probably put a pregame show on and a postgame show on and have a halftime show. And I got in that mix. That was a intense, as I recall, I really wanted the job. I didn't have one. So it was really, I needed that vibe. But at the same time, it was a return. My first job out of college in '94 was at Channel 7, WSVN. And so after 10 winters, it was time to come on back to paradise. And I remember seeing the diesel truck pulling up in front. And, man, I was like, let me try to get this gig. And it took 3 months for it all to, go from sending in the resume tape to being named. But it was a good race to win.
And everyone knows the story. I mean, I've told this story before where when Jason Jackson got the job back in, that 04-05 season. And I remembered him because I was like, oh, wait, that's the guy I used to stay up for every night during my teenage years. In the mid-late 90s, my favorite show on ESPN2, The Deuce, was the NBA Tonight, hosted by Jason Jackson. And I had to stay up for at least the beginning. Number one, that's how you got all your NBA highlights back then. Okay, that's
easily.
That's number one. I had to get my NBA highlights, but I also had to get the start of the show, the intro, where of course Jason Jackson tells all of us, "This is the NBA tonight," and that was my favorite show on television.
It was fun, man. Fred Carter, David Aldridge, myself. It was that was just joy, man. That was a magic carpet ride. Like, that was fun. Like, you had graduate. It's interesting when you get to ESPN back in those days and you get anointed and you have a seat among the Sports Center anchors, you're really, really fired up until you do it for a while. And then you're like, this is a heavy load, man. You've got to know every sport at the same level, and it's a high level.
Yeah.
And it's a lot. It's a lot of writing. It's about 7 hours that you're working before you go on to do one. And you get to work well before then, and there's meetings and all that other stuff. But you're yearning to find that specialty show. Where can I get something? And some people it was baseball tonight. Others it was trying to get in that NFL stream. But I saw an opening. It was another run, man. And what a great experience. It really allowed me to grow, as an anchor, as a host, and spread my wings and let personality come flying out. And learn a lot. Great to this day. DA and I are David Aldridge, the Hall of Fame writer, David Aldridge. Still, super tight, and what a joy to be around somebody who was in the league as a player and a coach like Fred Carter. So those were critical times. That's when it's funny, I met Dr. Jack Ramsey, may rest in peace, when I was a sports reporter here beforehand, but I worked with Dr. Jack far more when we were both employed by ESPN and ESPN Radio. And so that relationship proved to be extremely beneficial when I was trying to get the Heat job.
Yeah.
Obviously with his 8 years of tenure along that Eric. And so what an awesome full circle.
I don't know if I've talked to you since the run ended in June, and just give me a little bit of the experience and just how much fun it was, man. Like, it was cool for me from a perspective of, the stretch that we had 4 straight NBA finals. And then of course, back in 2020 as well, I was on those broadcasts, which was great. But this past year, I got to experience it with my family. I got to go to games with my boys for the first time in my life. All right. Because they weren't alive before I was on the Heat broadcast. And so I had an amazing experience getting to enjoy it just as a fan. How much fun was it for you last season? And I have super fond memories, even though they lost in 5, just the same way kind of that I felt in 2020, where I have super fond memories about that playoff run. Like I don't look back at losing in 2014 very fondly. That was bitter as hell. But like the loss this year in 2023, and I guess it's because once again we were like a super underdog. I have really great memories from this run. I really loved it.
Yeah, for me, it was first time calling the finals, and so the gravity of that I didn't even consider until you get to the finals and all of NBA entertainment each night's coming up, putting up, they want a scripted open. They want to have the GoPro right there in front of you, and all those unique things that become a part of the tapestry, the foreverness of the finals. Now, Kaz, who calls games for the Denver Nuggets, he has the greater joy of that foreverness because of having that final call. I don't know if you've seen it, by the way, but it is such a touching call.
Is that right?
That he made. Yeah, and Jason he has a big, huge voice, super raspy bottom, and there's this tender moment of him realizing or saying out loud, I can't believe they've won it, and then dropping his head, like just those things are magical. But I think I'll always remember the climb, of like, wait, they went Milwaukee quick.
Yeah.
Here we are reliving the late 90s, early 2000s, for those of us that were a part of it, with the Knicks, and so different era, different time, but that tapestry still felt like it was there, moving through that. And then, of course, the inevitable battle with Boston, which, as you know, for me, goes back to loving Showtime Lakers, and that just being like them in that place that way in a Game 7 was glorious. The pictures I have, and I made one that I put up in the house, just like the ones behind you. The smile on my face standing behind the Bob Cousy trophy, by the way.
But was the smile, was it joy or was it relief?
Joy.
Because for me, it was a lot of relief.
I understand, but that was almost 45 years of loving beating the Celtics, or just loving it. And so the joy of it in that town, in that place, not the old garden I grew up, watching those battles between Lakers and Celtics, but this era is enough that there's enough tapestry there over this last half decade for that battle between Miami and Boston to be real and to go get it and get to the finals. That was, of course, you want to go to the finals and win, but that feeling right there and those memories leading up to then, those special moments along the line, that'll be forever stuff.
For me, it was relief in that moment because it became more important to me to avoid being the first team ever to lose a 3-0 lead. It was more important to me to avoid that forever ignominy than winning the Eastern Conference Championship. It became more about the former to me. That became more important, was not being that team where we get laughed at forever. So, like, I was super relieved. We would have been laughed at forever, Jason. Forever.
There's nothing you could have put up in front of. There wasn't this human shield of, well, we barely got here.
No, it wouldn't.
You didn't. Once you started climbing up, you're like, no, this is.
They would have laughed at us forever, and you have no comeback. And on top of it, it's the team that you hate the most, or at least I hate the most, that would have done it to us, and there's no coming back from that.
Let it go, baby.
Forever.
It never happened.
Never happened.
It didn't happen.
Never happened.
What a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and knowing the way that it played out, you like the way it played out because you got the Celtics fan who thought they were going to do the thing. And then we took it from them on their home floor in a blowout. So knowing the way that it ended, we're good with it, But I was apoplectic after Game 6 and the Derek White shot. I couldn't even handle it.
Well, Derek barely did, so I can understand.
So I'm having a hard time, or maybe I shouldn't be having a hard time, but I don't know if you've seen social media over the last couple of days, and it's been ignited, especially because Bradley Beal sat down and talked about it, and Damian Lillard sat down and talked about it over the last couple of days. And it's like, I feel like a lot of Heat fans are going into this season just with the wrong attitude, like a lot of negativity. And I refuse to go into this season feeling that way. There's a lot of things about this team right now that I'm excited about, I'm looking forward to. And I feel the same way as I do going into every season, where I'm excited that my team is back and they've been in the finals 2 of the past 4 years. And I just feel like it's so the wrong attitude going into the season, bemoaning, what the team wasn't able to accomplish in the offseason.
It is, I've noticed it in different ways. And there are times when I inject myself into it and I'm trying to, rub this collective salve, and people are like, it's not yet. I don't want it. I want to feel this. I want to feel this disappointment.
I don't.
That I've never really understood. That doesn't compute for me. I don't operate that way. I don't know if that's growing up in the Midwest or that's just being in this business long enough to know that it's really important to see these things through. And for anyone that's feeling a certain way, that's part of fandom, right? That we all kind of lose our minds over the teams that we love the most. But hasn't this particular team proven to you time and time again that there's always something that's coming to tickle your fancy? I don't know if it's going to be another unheralded player coming through. I don't know if it's going to be your frontline player being even better than they've been. Something is going to happen that you're going to be able to embrace. And I assume that's why you're a Heat fan to begin with. And so I try not to get too excited. I try not to finger wag. I'm just always here when the bandwagon gets heavy. It's
just like as if they're not going to get to the playoffs and not going to have a chance against anyone they face, like they always do.
It's gonna, what I'm looking forward to 2 things. One, it'll be fun to see when we get there in April. But I have fully wrapped my arms around this in-season tournament in a way that I think most haven't.
I can't. Yeah. I don't know. Will. Sell me on it, man. I can't get into it.
You will. It's your boys will love it, by the way, when they're grown, right? They'll have a full decade of seeing, number one, the marketing machine of the NBA is going to beat your face in with the in-season tournament. So if you find yourself in November, and particularly if the Heat are doing well and they end up in one of those 8 teams and they go to the quarterfinals and they're off to Vegas, and now the only games that are played in a 3-day period are those games, you'll want it, Zaz. You know what I mean? Like you'll start to it's just the competition that we talk about all the time within the team and also within Heat Nation. There's no way that you can't dig it unless your team doesn't take it seriously.
I hope so. It's such a funny thing because like we saw it with Inter Miami and Messi and this Leagues Cup, and we were so into it, and they won the Leagues Cup, and it's like
I'd never heard of it before,
right?
And then I was locked in,
but we were into it, right. And it's like, why can't we feel that way about the end? You know, if the NBA is going to do a tournament like that, I don't know. I can't work up the energy for it right now, but maybe you're right. Maybe once they get there, you know.
Yeah, let's talk. Like mid-November, after the Heat started playing a couple of those games, the teams that are in the group are teams that are of concern. You know, there's Milwaukee sitting in there. There's the Knicks in there as well. And if the Heat come out of that space as one of the top 8 teams, you're going to want it. You're going to want it then, my man, because it's spreading us, right? It's something else to compete for. And you're going to hear Spo talk about it that way because it's a great way to kind of get the engine going earlier in the season in a time where most people will give themselves the excuse that they're still watching the Dolphins or their favorite NFL team.
I think a lot of this season, there's a lot of things that I'm looking forward to, believe it or not, with the team this year, even though there's disappointment among a lot of the fan base. One of the things that I think one of the major MOs of the team this year needs to be, even if it means taking a back seat toward regular season record and potential playoff seedings. We know just make the playoffs, they can beat anybody. Even if it means taking a little bit of a back seat record-wise, I really think a lot of this regular season needs to be about establishing a few of these young guys who could become contributors in the playoffs. You know, you had those secondary guys like Strus and Vincent who had been developed and were major contributors in the postseason. I think you need to make sure that you have some guys who are going to be ready to contribute in the postseason, even if that means, like I said, sacrificing some regular season wins to have those guys ready, I think is important.
Yeah, I don't think you're ever, it's not going to get admitted to you, or that it won't be a mantra of, hey, bleep the game, we're getting this stuff done for these guys. That's got to happen simultaneously in its effort, in its energy, right? But it has to happen. The depth is the lifeblood of the team. And so you're going to get that. So if that's a box you need checked, that's a wish list item for you. I think that's something you're going to see starting on Wednesday night. You're going to see those guys participating. Now, Spo doesn't have to go 10 deep either, right? So some of that development might not be in front of our eyes all the time. That it's the stuff that we don't see. Do we think we're going to see Jimmy Butler come out of the box any other way just because we haven't seen him in 5 preseason games? There's not one person that believes that you're just going to see, 5, 2, 2, and 2 on the stat line because we haven't seen Jimmy Butler playing games that were more important for the thing you're talking about.
Yeah.
To get player 11 through 21 really assessed before the final decisions were made. And it was funny, somebody called me and said, giving opportunity for others to play. Is that an actual designation?
Right.
It is now.
Right. That's right.
Well, we might have invented something there. But in the preseason, that's something that was important and needed. And also watching the tread on guys like Love and Lowry. So Butler as well. I'm excited to see the storyline for a Swider, for a Kane, for a Smith, and some others that are going to get opportunities along the way. Orlando Robinson's another guy that I'm just going to be an eyeball on.
I just don't know where they're finding the minutes for all these guys.
I don't either.
There's so many guys who it's like, all right, I want Josh Richardson to play. I want Jaquez to play. I want Jovic to play. I want Jamal Cain to play. There's not enough minutes for all of these guys.
Well, right off the bat.
I want Haywood Highsmith to play.
Right off the bat, you're not getting Highsmith or Richardson right off the bat. Mm-hmm. So that's the thing that's so important when you think about the totality of your 18, in the case of the Heat, your 17-man roster. Don't play around with your two ways. Don't mess around with your entire roster so that you know that when you start getting down 12, 13, 14, those are guys that can go and actually do something. And while the rest of the world's eyes are going, they did it again, you get to sit back and go, that's what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. Jax, excellent job, man. I appreciate you hanging out with us here. So tomorrow night, Detroit, you got anything extra you want to throw out there as far as extra coverage for tomorrow night and that whole deal?
Standard coverage will be there on Bally Sports Sun at 7 o'clock. Simultaneously, the Heat is on the radio pregame show at 7 as well. It's magical how Amy Adelbert and yours truly are at 7 Eastern on the dot, on at the same time. Let the magic of that happen. Am I live on TV or am I live on radio? That's up to other people. And then the Rock's in the air a little after 7:30. And let's get it started as the reigning Eastern Conference champions.
I love it. I'm looking forward to it. And like I said, I just, fans out there who are listening right now, it's so much easier just to be excited about the start of the season than to be annoyed about guys that they couldn't bring aboard. I really think you got to, maybe flip the attitude a little bit if you're not excited for tomorrow night,
Amen. It's a healthy approach.
Yeah.
But again, we are fanatics, and that isn't always healthy.
Great job, Jax. Appreciate it, man. Good catching up with you.
Always.